Our next question here comes from Asane Asane. Pronunciation also probably not correct. And their question is, so in the past, Ethan has said that Refold isn't the fastest method, but it's designed to be a method that people will stick to, and so in the long run, there's a much higher chance of actually meeting their fluency goals. Approximately how much slower is Refold than other methods to fluency? This person specifically is at over 2,000 hours of interactive learning with Chinese, and they don't even count free flow or podcasts in there. But they're nowhere near any definition of fluent. They still feel like they have level 4 comprehension on easier slice of life rom-coms, and they're very focused on that one domain. They still require reading subtitles and pausing and replaying lines. By FSI standards, they should not only be able to understand most things in real time without subs, but should also be able to comfortably speak by now.
Yeah, so a couple notes on this. The FSI standards are not 100% clear when you just look at their website. If you actually dig into the details, they have this estimation of classroom hours versus home hours, and the numbers they put on the website are just classroom hours. So there's additional homework hours, which I believe are like an additional 75% on top
Self-study.
of the
Yeah, it's about 75% more.
Yeah. So, you're essentially doing, you said 2,000 hours of interactive. That's 2,000 hours of essentially homework time. So I believe the FSI numbers, when you include everything all together, are 3,900 is the target for high level fluency.
For the level 4 languages, or category 4 languages.
For the hardest languages. Yeah. The other note is we have a much higher standard for comprehension and for what is fluency. My guess is if you actually stopped doing immersion right now and actually just went and practiced output, you would very quickly catch up to what a traditional classroom environment would give you. So even the folks coming out of FSI, they are very competent in a very small part of the language. It is not like a huge, broad, they can do everything in the language. They can watch TV, they can interact with everybody. They are able to communicate within the domains that that they need to, and they can do it at a very high level within those domains. So the approach that we're taking is more of a broad, trying to understand a huge portion of the language before starting the speaking process. But if you actually just narrowed your focus to a very, very small domain like they do, I'm guessing you could actually achieve a level 5 much, much faster. And then you would also be able to start speaking much, much faster. So if you're currently in the position of, I'm stuck at level 4 because there's just so many new words to learn, there's so many new topics to learn, I would encourage you to really narrow your focus in order to move things faster. So in terms of like whether how much slower Refold is compared to other methods, in a traditional like school environments, many people don't make any progress at all. They're learning like a couple words a day, and they're not really learning how to apply them or how to use them. So I would say it's much, much faster than a school, like a traditional school program. Comparing to
trying to get to like actual comfortable fluency. Yes. But if your goal was to just pass that class, then probably just doing the class is still the more likely to be the faster method.
Sure, depends on your goal.
Yeah.
Comparing to immersion programs where people are immersed in it all day and they're practicing speaking, those folks are going to be able to communicate at a reasonable level very quickly, much, much faster than Refold, because we're waiting so long before the output phase. Typically, the results of that are they have an ability to communicate, but it's not correct, not 100% correct. Or it is within a very small realm of the language, or it is very formulaic.
Or unnatural, right?
Yeah, unnatural and formulaic. So achieving a level that is actual sort of the native comfort level is a very different skill that is not necessarily taught, even in immersion programs. I'm specifically thinking about immersion programs that sort of separate you or like have you with teachers, immersing with teachers or with each other rather than immersing with natives. And then you have the more intensive all-in classes like the FSI, where you're sitting in a classroom for 8 hours a day and you are, it is sort of a supercharged version of the immersive classroom and the traditional classroom. And because they're doing it for 8 hours a day and they're dedicating their entire lives to that and they're doing homework outside of it, they are going to make much, much faster progress just because they are spending so much time and really, really putting themselves into the language 100%. And because they are forced to use it more, there is a feedback loop that can definitely help with the process, because they essentially have a human saying, you're doing this right, you're doing this wrong constantly. And that feedback loop can be helpful for building up your abilities much faster. Our feedback loop is essentially the input process of comparing your understanding to what's actually on the page and then using your own understanding as your own teacher. So it's a way to turn yourself into your own teacher rather than having an external teacher. But if you could afford to hire a teacher for 8 hours a day to train you on the language, that would probably be faster, as long as it was a good teacher.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting question that's hard to definitively answer, because it's like every person is a little different and there's going to be different circumstances, and it's like, oh, are you counting hours for faster or months for faster? Like, so there's not really a great way to give a perfect answer, other than that it depends on your goals and how you're learning. But yeah, everything that Ethan said is very much true, especially if you are trying to do something the fastest possible. Spending all day on it will always be faster than not doing that.
The other note I want to make is that we've actually modified our level system, because I don't really like the way that we wrote the way that I wrote the level 5. This idea of perfection is, in my mind, misguided at this point. And I want to change this in the original guide, because there is no perfection.
Level 6, I think, was perfection.
No, level 5 is perfection. Level 6 is ease.
Oh, I see.
So level 4 is like you can basically follow along with everything. Level 5 is you literally understand 100%, but you have to focus really hard. And level 6 is you can understand 100% without focus.
Okay.
So this idea of perfection is, I think, misguided. It's something that I want to remove from the system entirely, because as I've improved my Spanish, I've realized how much I don't understand in English on a regular basis. There are tons of words that I don't know. There are tons of times when people say things that I don't understand. So if I, as a native speaker, can't perfectly understand my native language, then I should not have the same expectation in Spanish. So what you might find is that with a little bit of focusing on a narrow domain, you can basically understand what you need to. And you may already be ready for output just because you have spent so much time with the language.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It seems to me like they might be a little bit afraid of outputting because they can hear all their problems and mistakes and they feel really awkward. And delaying it more, I think, is going to widen that gap. And speaking does help you sort of straighten stuff out in your head and really get more comfortable with like how people speak back to you and having conversations. And it can be really, really beneficial for your input abilities as well, for your understanding abilities. And so if you already have 2,000 interactive hours, it's probably about time to start at least trying to have conversations and learn that sort of thing.
Yeah. Don't be a perfectionist about it. I know that's contrary to what the guide currently says, and I apologize for that. But yeah, don't be a perfectionist about it. Language is not perfect. It changes constantly, and our abilities are not constant. Our abilities are not perfect, even in our native languages. So my recommendation for you is go out and start speaking and like really try to close the gap between your speaking ability and your comprehension ability. And that speaking process will give you the feedback that you need to understand what's actually important in the language to perfect.